Hey everyone, welcome back. Yang Yang Zhao here again. Today with Tyler from Draw and Talk, completing the day of too many streams. How you doing,
You've done a
man?
lot. I'm doing good. Yeah, I've been watching you do them. This is the day of many streams for you.
Yeah, last year I had a week of too many streams where somehow I ended up with like one every day of the week. And then I asked you to come on, and then for anyone who missed it, uh, check out my interview with Ed Jowett from he makes tabletop role playing games, talking about a superhero role playing games. Oh, geez, I feel bad. I remember it was Era
It was Era the Empowered.
the Empowered. That's
See,
it.
I was
Sorry,
listening. I remembered.
but it was interesting. Yeah, he said he knew you actually.
Yeah, I like when I started Draw and Talk, my YouTube channel. I was like, I'm gonna make the channel for comic book creators that I couldn't find. And by the seventh video I made of myself, I went, okay, I don't know, I don't have any more knowledge to give because I was still such a new creator. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, I figured out, I was like, okay, what if I brought on some other creators to talk? And Ed was one of like the very first like 10 people. And then I would just throw him in the rotation of like people I would like, 3 or 4 times bring on. And then yeah, I haven't like done anything with him since, but yeah, I definitely know him.
Oh, very cool. All right. So the reason I wanted to have you here is I don't talk about it that much, but I worked for 15 years in marketing, mostly in international marketing. And you, let's say in the last few months, have become very infamous for pointing out you actually need to market a book if you want it to sell.
Yeah.
So
Who
I
knew?
thought, oh, what a perfect opportunity. So just to start it off, where do you see the first place that people go wrong?
The very first thing, so like my background, I've been doing marketing for 10 years. The last 5 years I was actually working for a book publisher, doing their marketing and sales. And so I was hired on. I'm like, what do I need to do? And they said, we have a whole warehouse full of books that haven't sold in 30 years. You need to bring our online account from 0 to 15,000 dollars a
Hmm.
month, and you have 3 months to get to $15,000 a month regularly. Otherwise, you lose your job. So me and one other guy named Clint, that was our task. Like, how do we get this account to regularly doing $15,000 a month? By month 3, it was regularly doing 30,000. By month 6, we got up to 50 to 100,000 dollars a month just selling books. And so the number one thing that I say that creators they fall short is they don't know who their audience is. They don't even know they don't even know who their customer is. They don't even know who they're selling to.
I,
Um yeah.
I agree 100%. I've had, I've been doing this, I guess since 2019, having people on. And the amount of times that people have come on, and, I'm happy to have anyone, happy to talk about whatever. But I'll be like, oh, did you hit up people from this community? Did you hit like if the book's a horror book, like, oh, did you try to get on any shows that promote horror? Oh, well, no, I do comic books. It's like, why?
Yeah. Just like not like knowing who your audience is or who you're trying to sell your book to is so crucial. And it's it's mind-boggling how many creators don't know who their ideal customer profile is. And so I like even last night I'm in an off-air stream yard with like 6 creators, and they're all friends. We've known each other for like 5 years. And it's so funny because like one of them's been doing the comics for full time for like the last like 20 years. Another one's like been in the scene the same amount of time. But it's like they're always like, all right, Tyler, give us what's the business lesson today? What's the thing that we're not doing? And then I always go back to, you guys don't know who your audience is. And like I go, like last night we went through the ideal customer profile. What's the age? What's their genre? What do they do as a hot, like what are they watching? What are their hobbies? What are their purchase habits? Just like knowing that kind of stuff will easily then help you go on to the next step, because you just need a direction. If your book is a children's book and you go, oh, I'm going to make adult themed content to then sell my kids book, you're way off base. And so just knowing who your audience is going to push you in the right direction, at least put you in the right direction of what the next steps are in terms of your marketing strategy.
Yeah, yeah, that's one thing I've noticed, and I've also wondered too, what seems to be the resistance? Like, what there are certain people who say like marketing is magic and only wizards can do it, and things like that. But even when you give people like, hey, who's your audience? This and that, like, there doesn't seem to be a lot of emphasis in figuring that kind of thing out.
Yeah, the I think the resistance comes because we're just gonna go for it. The resistance comes because comes from laziness. It's just laziness. Like, I read a ton of business and marketing books. Like, I love them. I eat them up, and I have a few that I always go like start. I always tell creators like start off with these two,
Hmm.
and I always get messages saying this book sucked. It didn't tell me what to. It didn't tell me what to do, and I'm like, it absolutely tells you what to do, but but it's not like a roadmap, like a specific step one, do this exact thing. It's like, hey, learn. You need to figure out who your audience is. This is how you figure out who your audience is, and then the book will then go. So now that you know what you need to do, you need to fill in the information yourself. And a lot of people, they make a superhero comic book, and instead of sitting down and going, what does the person who buys my book, what do they look like? Instead, they go, they read comics and they like superhero stuff. And that's just so broad, it's so general, and then their strategies destroyed. I mean, we'll sometimes at like at companies I've worked for, when we're trying to figure out who our ideal customer profile is, I mean, sometimes we'll spend like weeks just like, what does this person look like, just trying to figure that out. And it's very tedious, and it's a lot of it's research. It's not fun. um and I think it just comes down to creators being lazy, because it's not the creative aspects of it, it's the sitting down and trying to like find the people who are going to read it.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think another thing is fear, especially for people who have never done anything like that before. Like when I write, the worst thing for me is a blank page. I get, anxiety. Like I just have to write, like, okay, let me make an outline first, and then once I
Uh-huh.
break it into small parts, I'm okay. I think certain people are like that too. But if you want to make a campaign, like for people who want to make money doing comics, let's put it that way. If your dream is just to see your comic in print, okay, cool, whatever. But if you're like, I would like to have an income, I want this to be my side gig, or maybe one day you want to do it full time, like you got to be moving books. And yeah, I think you're right. At some point, you have to bite the bullet, and even if you're afraid, or even if you're lazy, you got to make that effort.
And it sucks, like it absolutely does suck, like doing this full time right now. um I'm like, okay, I've got to bring in money. Like I've got to bring in cash. And so a lot of it's like I spent probably 3 weeks last month just learning how to build specific types of content that I know will. So like, let me learn how to build this specific type of content, then spend another couple weeks. Okay, this is how you find the people who are going to consume that content. And then how do I create a strategy to create the content so I can do this every week? And that takes another week. And then I'm like 6 or 7 weeks out. I haven't produced anything. It's just learning. And then once you start doing it, you're getting zero results because it's new. And then you just have to tell yourself, don't worry, in 3 to 4 years, I'm going to be loving myself for starting.
Mhm.
But like 7 weeks of it was just learning, and then the next three, like a year or two, is just grinding your ass off before you maybe even see a dollar. And most people can't even get through the first 7 weeks of just learning. But also, and I would say this, and this is where I try to do the stuff on my Twitter, is a lot of people don't even know where to start. They don't even know the
Yeah.
things that they can start. And so that's why like and I get so much like heat from it on Twitter, and like Facebook, which is fine. But like I always say, like, let me point you in various directions. Like, hey, you can start a newsletter, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And most people don't even know that they can do some of those other things. Some of the things that I'm saying, and I can generate an audience. And so I think most people don't even know what to start off with, and then if they do know what to start off with, they can't even get through the 7 weeks of learning the thing. And then if they can get past if they can get through the 7 weeks of that, most of them can't get past maybe the first 6 months of just grinding and getting nothing out of it.
Yeah. So where, in talking about the first big problem, identifying your audience,
Yeah.
where would you suggest people go to look for data just on who exactly the audience is?
So and it really comes down to like, okay, like what there's two types of creators, and you're either the creator who like, I do this one thing. Like, so for example, like Brandon Sanderson, he does fantasy. Like that, he does high fantasy books. Like he doesn't really do anything else. Like he's like, even if he does 90% of the stuff that he does is high fantasy. Then you have people like, we'll just use Scott Snyder. He's written every comic genre in the book. And so there's two different types of strategies. For Scott Snyder, for a creator like Scott Snyder, who's like, we'll use my friend Travis Gibb, for example. He writes so many different genres. He can't say like, I'm the fantasy guy. You really have to back the book. You really have to support the book, because you trust Travis Gibb is going to give you a good story, which he does. And so right there, you have to find your audience, to get people to like you yourself. It has to be more general type of content. So that's where you're going to have to be a little more broad and go, let me talk about comics in general, as a whole. And that content that's like the harder way to do things. It's the way that I'm doing it right now, and it's definitely the harder way to do it. The smarter way would be the Brandon Sanderson way, where you're like, I'm Brandon Sanderson, I'm Brandon, I write fantasy. And you go, okay, how do I build an audience of fantasy people? What do they look like? And there's 5 ways to sell people something. Number 1, you can cold message them. People hate that, but it can work. But people hate that. There's paid advertising, but the risk is you can spend $1,000 and get nothing in return. There's publishing and working with a publisher or an affiliate. The problem with that is you either don't get as much money as you should, and you could potentially lose the rights to your property. But a lot of creators do that because they think that the publisher or affiliate's going to do all the work that they don't want to do. And it's absolutely false. The 4th way to sell something is to create content, and that's free, but it takes time and education to learn how to get good. And then the 5th way is word of mouth, and it's just like, that's just it's typically uncontrolled. Like you can't control the word of mouth sales. So I always choose content. I always choose to find your audience, make content for that audience, and then they'll come. And so if I was a fantasy writer, the first thing that I would do is go, okay, what kind of content are fantasy people consuming? And so I would go on YouTube, I would go on TikTok and go, what are people consuming? And I would see they're probably consuming, this discussion would have been good like last year, but they're probably consuming House of Dragon. They're consuming Rings of Power. They're consuming Brandon Sanderson's $40 million Kickstarter. So I'm going to create content about Rings of Power. I'm going to create content about House of Dragon, and I'm going to create content about Brandon Sanderson. Even though in this scenario I am Brandon Sanderson, I'm going to find other books that are top fantasy books, and I'm going to create content about those. And then, like, just from that stage 1, you're getting people you're getting fantasy people to go, oh, Rings of Power, I like Rings of Power, I'm going to go consume this person's content. And now they know me as a fantasy person. And then I'm going to slowly bring in the fact that, hey, I'm also I'm a aspiring writer of fantasy, and I love fantasy. And to prove that I love fantasy, that's why I'm making all this fantasy content, to show that I'm in the genre, I'm in the community, and we're going to talk about fantasy stuff. And then they're going to come to you and they're going to start consuming your fantasy content. And now that you've built an audience, you then can sell them. You can sell them the work that you're doing. So that I always say you create content to build an audience, to sell that audience your product. And a lot of people think their comic and their book is content. No, that's a product. You need to create content to build an audience to sell them your comic or your book. And so that's the first thing I would do, is just see where are these people located? Are they located mostly on TikTok? Are they located mostly on Twitter? Are they located on some random website that only fantasy people know? Like, are they like, where are these people at? And then go, okay, how do I get them into my little bubble? And that means either maybe creating a newsletter, maybe it means creating a blog or video content or a podcast. I don't know, but you need to be where they are, find where they are, be where they are, create content for them.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Especially about people thinking that their book is the content, unless like you've been doing sort of like pre-book, like let's say you're doing a web comic that you're putting up for free for a certain amount of time, and then you'll be like, oh, do you like these characters? Well, guess what? They're going to be in this new adventure here on Kickstarter or wherever.
Mm-hmm. And like the way to do that, the way that you could make your comic the content, one of the best, not one of the best, the best person to do it is Merriweather. I don't know if you know Merriweather.
No, I don't know.
He makes comic strips, and they're anime girls, and they're like 4 panels. They're 4 or 5 panels, so like you can easily bust out one of those a week, sometimes more. And he hires tons of artists, so he's able to post sometimes like 2-3 times a week. And the characters are cute, they're marketable, but they also play within the cultural zeitgeist. And so if when people are talking about, I'm just going to make this up, like the McRib comes out, he then puts out a comic and it's canon to their story, but his characters are talking about the McRib in this 4-panel, 5-panel comic strip. And he posts on Instagram, he posts on Twitter, he posts on Webtoon, and then he puts it on YouTube, and he has people voice over it, and there's music, and it's like a 1-minute, video, and now he's using his comic as content. And it's in the one, I've tried to emulate it. It's extremely difficult to just even do one of the things that he's done. So I did want to know when I'm out. You win, Merriweather, but that's a way to that's a way to use your comic as content. And that takes a specific type of creator to say the comic that I'm making is specifically made to be consumed on YouTube and social media. Whereas I think most creators are like, my story is supposed to be consumed as like this, like in a book form, or just as like a narrative, not a strip that you read on Twitter, like, and move on.
Yeah, I mean that's one good way. So and you were talking about advertising, which of course is going to cost you some money for sure.
Yeah.
I read one of the 2 books that you recommended. I can't remember which one it was. It was the yellow one.
Oh, the 1-page marketing plan.
Yes, the 1-page marketing plan. So can you give us maybe 5 examples of things that you can do that you don't have to pay cash for? Let's put it that way.
Easy. Okay. Something you don't have to pay cash for? Okay, easy. You can, step 1, join social media. All of it's free. Step 2, open up a Substack. That's free too, which is a newsletter. Step 3, post on social media content. Post on the free social media content account that you just made. Content that gets people to your Substack, and then that gets them to your email address. Then you have their email address. You use your Substack to create a hardcore following that follow your newsletter. And then you eventually can sell stuff to them, and you push product to them. And how do you push product online? You then open up a store, and then you can use a free service like Gumroad, which is free. And you put your product on Gumroad, and you can do physical or digital. They just take, with a free account, they take 10% of every sale. So it is a little gnarly, but that's what, it's a free account. And then We're still on the free so far, so I'm pretty proud of myself. You sell it to them. You use their free remarketing service to get more sales. I'm trying to think of like 2 others. And then to make your content, I'm gonna pretend that everyone has a phone. Everyone has a phone or a computer, so I'm gonna count that in the budget. But then you can record using your webcam or your phone. You can then get a free software like CapCut, and then you can make really good YouTube videos using CapCut, which is free. I need a fifth one. And then once you get enough subscribers, you can then get like a Teespring account, which is free, and then start selling merch. So all of that cost you $0 to do all of the marketing and all the content creation and selling.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with everything that you said. I know in the art world that in some ways there's reluctance to do this. I used to teach graphic design courses, and about 22 years ago, I was teaching at a college, and I saw students, they came up with these real cool designs, and I'd be like, oh, why don't you put that on a coffee mug? Why don't you put that on a mouse pad? Why don't you put that on a t-shirt? And I'd show them like, I think there was like Tea Spirit or a couple stores at the time. And man, the other professors, I was just an adjunct, the full-timers, they hated me with a passion because, how could I propose something so dirty as selling directly to customers,
Oh yeah.
And I was like, these students want beer money,
How dare you tell them to start a print-on-demand printing service? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, like seriously, like you can open up a free Etsy account. You can get a Teespring account or a Printful. I use Printful. Put your designs on Printful for free. You then connect it to the Etsy account, which is free, and then you can sell it through Etsy. And I know tons of people making tons of money who do that. I mean, here's the thing, like with all kinds of marketing online stuff, there's no like get rich quick. Like it's you can get rich, but you have to be willing to spend a lot of time per platform on it, but it is possible.
So, mentioning all these free services, in a lot of ways, they sort of took over what a website would have been 20, 25 years ago, where, you would have had all that on your own website. Do you still think there's any value into having your own website, or does it not matter anymore?
I still think that you should. I do. I run all my stuff through a Shopify site just because that's what I'm most familiar with. The benefit of it is a benefit of having it on your own website is you just are in control, and everything just looks good. So like I used a Gumroad, but like you could only sell things, and your page had to look a specific way, and there was no customizing it. And so I'm like, well, flip, I want my customer to have this kind of experience. They're not getting that. And then with the Substack, you can write like blog content on Substack, but you're not getting any of the search engine optimization because Substack doesn't do any of that. And so like for all the content that I write on Substack, I throw it up on my blog just so that I can get some sort of ranking on Google. And so yeah, so I think creators should have their own website if they can like afford it. But if they can't, or they're just starting, there is so many free avenues that they can start off with, and then eventually build up to getting like a Shopify website that's like $30 a month. Shopify right now has like it's called the new creator account, and it's like a $5 a month Shopify site. Like you can do $5. You can do $5 a month.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if people want to get adventurous, you could get WordPress or Joomla, or there's a ton of totally free stuff, but it does take more effort into learning how to make it do exactly what you want to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So, do you think? Are you selling directly through your website now, or are you only selling through crowdfunding campaigns?
Yeah, so I do both. And I'm hopefully in the next like couple weeks going to be also moving into Amazon. I
Oh,
have
nice.
I have like one product on Amazon. I have been trying to get my books on Amazon. I have, but like their AI and like their terms of service and stuff. So like just like their printing stuff, it's all done by a
Mhm.
computer. And if the computer thinks you're like this much off, the quality, their quality service AI is like rejects it. And so I did like 20 different versions of my book, and each time it just wasn't working at working with their service. And I finally got it right, and I did a print proof copy, and it looked perfect. Like the book was absolutely perfect, but their AI still was like, this doesn't work out. And so I gave up on that for
Hmm.
like, I gave up on doing it for like the last 2 years. And finally, I have a friend who was like, hey, I did it. And I go, what the fuck? How did you do it? And he goes, oh, like all of their template numbers are wrong. I made my own. And I was like, I will
Oh,
give you so much money if you just give me that template. And I'll give you even more if you do it for me. And he was like, I'll just give you the template. And I was like, but what if I give you money and you can do it for me? He's like, no, I'll just give you the template. And so it's just me needing to sit down and do all that jazz. But yeah, right now I sell through mostly, so it's like 90% Kickstarter, and then I sell through my website,
hmm.
both
Have you ever
physical and
tried?
digital products.
Have you ever tried Indiegogo?
I have. I've done like 4 or 5 campaigns on Indiegogo. I absolutely hate the platform.
Okay.
I hate the platform.
Uh, so I also have a question. Your opinion on crowdfunding itself, because I think one thing that people don't really realize is crowdfunding sites take money. They're going to take a percentage of your sales. So that
10%.
means 10%. So that means the creator is losing 10% of, if you have a $10,000 campaign, you lost a grand.
Yeah.
So for me, the issue with crowdfunding sites is always that they need to be providing me with something that's, on a $10,000 campaign worth $1,000.
Yeah.
And,
You can't
a
figure it
lot of
out yet.
people, well, a lot of people would say like, oh, well, you could take money early. I say, no, I can build a website with a shopping thing with pre-sales. That's
Yeah.
easy enough. So it's gotta be that they are bringing more traffic into the campaign. So I'm working on a D&D compatible campaign guide right now. Hopefully, going to launch it next year. And I've been doing research. And on Kickstarter, there are people who will just like D&D, I'll back it. D&D, I'll
Yeah.
back it.
My friend, I've got a friend here. He lives the cushiest life, and he refused to tell me what he was doing with his life. He goes, "Oh, dude, I'm just a creative man." I'm like, "Shut up! I only see you vacationing every week." And I did a little digging, and I did a little digging, and he had his own company, which is fantastic. I don't know why you wouldn't brag. He sells D&D stuff on Kickstarter, and each of them do over 1 million.
Mhm.
And like he would, I'm like, you could just tell me, like, I think it's cool. And so, but yeah, people love D&D on Kickstarter for sure.
Yes. So, for me, if I'm going to launch that campaign on Kickstarter, that makes sense. That might be worth 10% right there. But I'm wondering about, supposedly Indiegogo has less, but,
That's a crap
all the people I
platform.
see launching comics, is it, number one, are people able to find your book on Indiegogo? Number two, are they promoting it in any way? And even like it makes me wonder about Fund My Comic. Now I've had Luke Stone on before. I like Luke; he's a nice guy. But if what is Fund My Comic bring me
Nothing.
if they don't have now maybe in the future when they have like if they can get a larger audience,
Yeah.
that might be worth it.
Yeah. So I'll just break this all down. And I've experimented. So here's the thing: like I come at just not being like, oh, I suck Kickstarter's dick. I've experimented. So on Indiegogo, you can put up a book, and I say like when I'm going to say this, I'm going to say the same thing about Fund My Comic. You have to earn every dollar. What I mean
Mhm.
by that is when I do an Indiegogo campaign, if I don't go on shows and I'm constantly shilling out on Twitter and social media, but specifically if I'm not going on shows that promote Indiegogos to Indiegogo audiences, my book isn't going to get a single backer. Same with Fund My Comic, because there's no organic traffic on Indiegogo and there's no organic traffic on Fund My Comic. Fund My Comic just has no organic traffic because it's just so new. And so you have to, if your voice doesn't say go back my book at the Indiegogo or Fund My Comic, you're not getting $1. And with Indiegogo, I've put campaigns up there, and if I don't say a single word, I make zero money. But if I spend 30 days going on every show that does an Indiegogo promo, I will get backers. And so it's just a shit ton of work to do Indiegogo and Fund My Comic, because you, which isn't bad. It's not a wrong thing to work hard, but you earn every single dollar. Kickstarter, the difference with Kickstarter is Kickstarter has an organic audience. You can put up a book on Kickstarter, tell no one, and if the idea is good enough and everything, and if the page presentation and the product is good enough, you will get backers. I'm not saying you're going to get a ton, but you will get backers. And I know this because, did you hear about my Sexy Witch Academia experiment? Yeah. So for those of you who are watching who don't know, I put up a book on Kickstarter under a fake account. I mean, it's a real account now, but it was a fake account. It's called Mr. Smile. I used all pseudonyms on like all my artists, even me. And I didn't tell anyone. And I put the campaign up, I hit live, and then it funded in 24 hours. I didn't tell a single person. And then I waited a whole week before I told people. And by the end of the week, it was like $3,000. And I hadn't told a single soul. Done zero marketing, zero promotion. It was just strictly the Kickstarter organic algorithm pushing that book. So that's why that's why to me, like the 10% on Kickstarter is totally worth it. Is just because of that organic platform, is that organic audience. And then, so I like Kickstarter. I hate Indiegogo. Like I'll never go back on Indiegogo ever again. And Fund My Comic, it doesn't really have anything to offer me right now.
Yeah, and I think that's another way people need to look at it. Marketing, people do. I don't love Kickstarter. In fact, I don't love either Kickstarter or Indiegogo. Because I find business practices on both not
Shady.
so great, to say the least. But if you need money up front to get something produced, you could do that, or you could make a website and have pre-sales.
Here's the thing with like also building a website as well. It's the same thing with Indiegogo and Fund My Comic. No, you're not getting a sale on your website unless it came out of your mouth to come check it out. And so, I just think, with Kickstarter, you can, I think I've spent the last week not talking about my Kickstarter, and I've still been getting people backing my book. And it's like new people that I've like, how did you find my book? I've never seen you before. And so, to me, it's worth the 10% that they take.
Yeah, and again, that's you can really consider that a marketing budget. Like you have to spend some money to make some money.
Yeah.
And also, knowing where your customers are. There's a lot of subgenres of entertainment where people go on Kickstarter looking for that kind of entertainment that they like. Yeah. And if you know you can fall in it, well, okay, 10%'s not such a bad cut.
Now, I will say this about Kickstarter. I was talking to some friends about it the other day. I was like, the thing I hate about Kickstarter is that there's actually that no one can say that they're a Kickstarter expert. And the reason why is there are no analytics on Kickstarter. Kickstarter doesn't tell you who these people are. Kickstarter doesn't tell you what their race is. It doesn't tell you what their genders are, their age. So and I was telling my friend, he's like, Tyler, like, why are you putting so much effort in trying to get building your online store, all these other things? I'm like, he's like, you're doing great on Kickstarter. Just focus that. And I was like, because I don't know who these people are. I don't know the demographic of Kickstarter. And you can't tell me that you do either, because no one does. Like the top people don't know, because there's no analytics. There's no dashboard. You're not even allowed to in your Kickstarter ask people those questions in the surveys. And so to me, it's just so Wild West that, like, I preach about knowing who your customer profile is, and yet I'm a hypocrite because I'm selling mostly on Kickstarter. I don't know who these people are. All I really know is that I'm just lucky enough that they like 3 of the series that I've done. And I'm just going to keep feeding it to them. But I can't make a legit calculated decision on, oh, I think they're going to like this because of these objective data points, because those data points don't exist on the platform. And that scares me. And Indiegogo and Fund My Comic don't have those either. And so that's why I'm very bullish on like, okay, I need to learn how to get people over to my website because then I can get those analytics better.
Yeah, and not only just the analytics, I just think that there's a very good defensive reason to, spread yourself out over a ton of different social media, but to have a centralized website. And that's just, 5 years ago, a bunch of people were getting kicked off of Kickstarter. More recently, a bunch of people are getting shadow banned on Indiegogo. You never know when any one of these platforms is going to go. And if you put all your eggs in one basket, if you become the Kickstarter expert and all of a sudden Kickstarter decides they don't like you,
you're screwed.
And they don't have to, you're screwed. So even though it's in some ways more work, but it's better to sort of diversify it out and then keep yourself there. And the other thing is, when you enter this kind of space, you become a brand. Yes. Whether you want to or you don't want to, you become that brand. So you got to make sure that the central place people know is your own site. So I give the example of like Apple. Everybody knows Apple stores, and that's probably the first place people think to go. But tons of other places sell Apple products.
Mm-hmm. But there's that trust. Yeah. No, but there's that trust because I'm the same way. I'm like, all of my stuff is Apple. I'm an Apple whore. And so my wife is like, you can just get like the new MacBook over at Best Buy across the street. I'm like, correct. Or I can order it online through Apple, and I know they're going to give it to me. And she's like, yes, you go to the store and you say, I want that Mac, and they will hand it to you. And I'm like, or I go to the site and they hand it to, and then they send me the exact one I want. And she's like, they'll sell you the exact one that you want. And I'm like, well, what if they don't even have it? Now I've driven up for no reason. I know the Apple store has it. And, but yeah, no, you're right. It's just a brand loyalty thing. And that's a big thing with like, that's a big thing right now with discussion. It's been a big discussion with creators is that, like when people get a book from me, they know they're going to get it on time through crowdfunding, and they know it's going to be packaged a certain way. And they know that I'm going to offer them a specific type of customer service and whatnot. And what we're seeing is people who might have not given people that trust, they're slowly seeing diminishing returns. Yep. And it's crazy because a lot of them are, at least they're spouting online, oh, it's because of this, it's because of this. And there's a part of me that knows that like deep down in their hearts, they know that they fucked up and they continue to fuck up and whatnot. We know who all these people are. We don't have to say their names, but we know. And so, I think with brand, you as a creator need to like know that you're a brand, you need to protect yourself, and you also need to present yourself a certain way. I had some creator going, I hate Twitter, blah, blah, you can't grow on it. And I'm like, yeah, you can totally grow on Twitter. And I looked at his count and I'm like, there's no way anyone would want to follow you on Twitter, dude. You're an asshole. And he goes, yeah, but I'm just trying to sell my comics. I'm like, I wouldn't buy from you. I know you, and I'm not, and like, I think you're just reading your tweets. You're a fucking asshole. So why would I buy stuff from you if you're like this complete, like awful human being online? And it's just presentation and brand, and I think a lot of creators don't do that for themselves.
And I think that's one thing that people get confused about. Like, you don't necessarily have to be real milquetoast on it. Like, if your brand is, I want to be the conservative comic book maker or the liberal comic book maker, that's okay, and you could be real upfront about that. But what you can't do is go getting into like bitchy girl fights with other people and just spend all day doing that, because nobody's going to want to buy from you. Or you can't go complaining about, oh, the other side does da, 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 da. You just have to be more
strategic.
Exactly.
Strategic for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So in reading the I forgot the title, the 1 hour marketing guide. Right?
Oh, is it the 1 page marketing plan or the 1 hour?
Page
one page marketing. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what is your general approach to, like, you say, okay, I'm gonna start I'm gonna start a new book.
Yeah.
What's your general? I mean, after you determine your audience, and
Yeah.
where they're going to be, where do you go from there?
So the one page marketing plan is fantastic. So like the reason why I say like do like the like to I always say do both, and I actually always say to read the 1 hour content plan first. So if you read the 1 hour content plan book, that's the red one. It tells you, okay, this is it tells you how to find an audience and then how to create content for them. And then the second book is, now that you know how to create content for the right audience, this is how you market to them. And it's like the most, my friend Clint and I always joke, like, this is the marketing stuff that is just so boring, and like it is so not like it's not glamorous. Like when people think marketing now, like the problem with the internet is when people hear marketing, they think of like the Instagram model who's posting on Instagram, or the girl who's like, I'm doing TikToks. It's like, no, that's cute marketing. Real marketing is like what is all the stuff you're doing behind the scenes, and that's what the one page marketing plan teaches you. And so I've identified my audience. I create content for them, and now you look at the one page marketing plan, and the one page marketing plan is how do you is it's the customer journey. The one page marketing plan is the customer journey, and the goal is to acquire the customer, and then it's to acquire the customer, convert the customer, get them to come back, and get them to come back. And so you create content, and then as you create content, you build loyalty, and you build a loyalty between you and that person. And then eventually when they convert, then you need to get their email address. Like I always tell people, you need to get their email address. I don't care if they never buy from you, get their email address. So you have to find a way to get them to do an email address. My current way to do it is I like to do blog content. And when someone reads my blog and a little pop-up comes up, do you want to sign up for more freaking content? Here's a 50% off coupon, blah, blah. I want a 50% off coupon, blah, blah, blah. I don't even care if they buy anything. I have their email. Or, do a free giveaway. Here's the first issue of my comic for free. Boom. Now you got their email. Now you can truly get them in a sales funnel where you can either email them once, twice, 5 times, 10 times before maybe the final email is, hey, do you want to buy something? And then they buy then they buy it, and then you can then give them, okay, your order's on the way. Hey, what did you think of the product? Leave us a review. Here's a 50% off coupon. Come back and buy a second thing. And typically, if someone buys something from you 2 or 3 times, they're more likely to do it 10 times. And so it's just like, can you get someone to buy that second or third time? And the one page marketing plan teaches you that. And what's great, and then like, I try to explain it to us because we're nerds. Dungeons and like a DM has basically like a tree of all the possibilities of, oh, if the characters do this, this happens. And if the characters go here, this happens. That's what the one page marketing plan teaches you, is if the customer does this, you do this marketing that connects to this, and it teaches you how to weave this road to eventually get them to convert. And I've tried to explain it to nerds like us to go, this, you're just formulating a Dungeons and Dragons campaign for your customer. And then they just go, that's so fucking boring. And I'm like, no, it's great. Like
Oh,
you
come
can
on.
create, like, that's why it's called the customer journey. You just call it the customer adventure, but you can weave their way back in there. My on my last job when I was selling books, I mean, we were selling a shit ton of books, like millions of dollars of books. One day, my friend Clint goes, "What? Hey, Tyler, what if we're actually not as good as we think?" And I go, "What are you talking about? We're the best." And he goes, I need you to do my job for the next week because I'm going to look into the data because I don't think we're actually as good as we think. And I go, okay, fine, whatever, but we are. A week later, he goes, we need to have a meeting. I go, okay, fine. And he goes, Tyler, we are really good at getting first-time purchases. I go, well, that's great. We always need to acquire new customers. And he goes, correct. They're not buying again. So something is going wrong in our customer journey. And I go, okay. And then he goes, I need you to figure out why. So then I spent a week And I find out that if someone buys 2 times from us, they're then like 50% more likely to buy a third time. And if they buy something from us 3 times, the number goes to 4, 5, 6, all the way to 10. And so it's like, crap, our customer journey has nothing about, hey, buy from us a second time or a third time. And so just from that, we then, you pull out that 1-page marketing plan and you go, okay, when this happens, this happens, this happens. Now they're ordering a second time. Now they're ordering a third time. And after the third time, it's Jesus take the wheel. They're going to buy 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10s. And that's just the marketing stuff that creatives don't like. They don't like talking about it. It sucks the soul out of creativity. It's boring to sit on a computer and build out email campaigns like you abandoned your cart 2 hours ago. Do you want to come back? Like, people don't want to write those. Like, everyone forgets, like, those, like, someone had to write that text message. Someone wrote that email. But that's what happened. Like, but people, like, creatives just think that's really boring stuff, which it is.
All right. So, we talked very briefly before the show. You have now gone full-time creator. So how does that change your marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question. It gives me more time. So, like, a lot of people thought that I'd be drawing more. I'm actually not drawing more. I'm actually having more time to do the things that I wanted to do. And so when I was working my 9-to-5 job, like, I'm like, okay, well, I need to make a comic. I need to make a comic and sell it. Like, that's just like number one. But now I can think of this is live in Orem, you poor bastard. I like Orem, Utah. It's a very nice place. But so the things that I'm doing mostly is creating content to build out an audience. So I'm not my drawing. I haven't done as much drawing. I'm doing the same amount of drawing. And my really big thing is just creating content to acquire more customers. And so I've actually started 2 new, like, we'll call them businesses. They're not really businesses right now. Just like, yeah, we'll just call them businesses for the sake of it now. 2 businesses, and the whole goal of those is to get customers who read comics, manga, and webtoons. And I've hired, and then I'm not hired. I've basically partnered with various people, with various writers, and being like, hey, do you want to partner with me on this? I'll give you the X percentage of the company if we ever make money. And a lot of them know me and know that I know how to make money online. And so they go, oh yeah, like, I know that in a year or so this could make lots of money, and I want to be on this. And so we're starting that. And the goal is, one, to make money off of these 2 separate businesses, but then there is overlap of the audience so that I can maybe in these 2 other separate businesses go, hey, the people behind the screen who are part of this business also make comics, and here's their comic. And some of the overlap will then come over to our sales. And so that's what I'm really doing, is I'm trying to make other outlets that bring in money. And I'm doing it through the comics and manga and webtoon fandoms.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely, a real stepping off point. I started a design company back in 97. And it was pretty scary at first because you're like, oh my God, where's the money going to come from? But then once you really dedicate the time to it, it's like, oh, yeah, I can actually make this work.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like, a lot of people are like, Tyler, like, that's not making comics. You're something else. And I always say, like, well, I just look at myself as a creator in general. Like, I'm not just like, everything I do is to fund me making comics. So if I can make these 2 businesses make, like, continual money, that funds me making more comics. Because right now the comics are funding me making comics, which is fine, which is great. But I love if these other things were funding myself to comics. And as well, there's just overlap. Like, I'm not like, oh, here's selling perfume, and then that perfume money is there to make comics. I'm doing comic, manga, and webtoon related stuff, content, and business that is helping me produce. And the goal with that is, if you can tap into some of that audience and they come over to you, it's just massive. And so that's the stuff that I'm doing lately. It's all marketing, all marketing related, all biz. Like, I told someone yesterday about it, and they're like, that sounds so boring. I'm like, yeah, you're not going to be telling me that in like 6 years if this thing pops off.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. If again, in my opinion, it depends on what you want to do. There's a lot of people they just want to make a comic, and that's
For
it.
sure.
No, I say good. That's fantastic. But
I
if it's
think, yeah,
something,
the person who I
you
say like the person who like yeah if the person who I say like if they go the person who if they go, oh, that's so boring and stuff, it's it's uh it's the people who want to sell comics. When I tell them this idea, the fact that when I tell them the idea and they roll their eyes and they throw up, I go, you just don't get what I'm doing. Because if you understood it, you'd probably jizz in your pants because of how the upside potential would be to selling your comic. And a lot of them just go, well, I want my comic to sell my comic. And I'm like, well, your comic's not going to sell your comic. It's going to be your content and marketing strategy that's going to sell your comic. Unfortunately, some people's comic can sell their comic, but there is some marketing strategy to those ones as well.
so sort of a more macro question.
Yeah.
Everyone can say the U.S. comic industry is crap. Um, Manga is ruling the roost. Where do you see U.S. producers of comics going?
That's
Like is it everybody in the U.S. is going to have to do stuff like you're doing now in like the next 5 to 10 years, or is it? Do you think like some of these people now who are starting to make money and they can deliver? Do you see them as getting larger and becoming like a sort of a pseudo replacement for Marvel and DC?
So I'll give you a different answer than you're probably expecting. I don't think it's crashing at all. I think it's just shifting. And I think it's just shifting and it's changing, and it's just changing in a more violent way than we'd like. It's like seeing an elderly person just slowly die. And it's like, I loved you so much. And as that person's getting older and dying, they're also just becoming more of a dick.
Mhm.
And so I look at I look at what's going on in Western comics, and I don't, I see the audience shifting. What the majority of readers, I think the majority of readers, what they want is shifting. And the majority of readers are right now, their ages are 15 to 24. And so the 15 to 24-year-olds, they don't really care about superheroes. They don't care about Batman. They don't care about
Yeah.
Spider-Man. What do they care about? They're caring about webtoons. They're caring about manga. And webtoons is so massive because like it is a Korean company, but there's a shit ton of Americans writing and producing webtoons. And so like one, manga is killing it. In 5 years, I promise you, Yang, in 5 years, the conversation on Twitter is going to be webtoons is outselling manga. I promise you, it's going to be that, because webtoons is going to destroy manga at some point. So like it's like webtoons or manhwa, they're going to destroy
Mhm.
they're going to destroy manga sales at some point. Um,
Mhm.
and so I just think audience shifts are changed. And I think the things that we're used to as Western comic fans, like floppies, superheroes, I think those are just going to get more niche, more niche. I think the floppies are going to die. I think Batman's still going to be around, but it's just going to be in like trade paperbacks, and it'll be even more niche than it is. And then the new mainstream stuff is going to be stuff that probably we don't even know about, that we're not talking about, but the 15 to 24-year-olds, that they're all in on it. Like one of the biggest comics right now is Lore Olympus. Have you ever read Lore Olympus?
No.
Or hold on, it's right here. Perfect. Okay. Check this shit out. Okay. Lore Olympus right here. It's a webtoon. And now it's a hardcover book. It sells in Barnes and Noble. They adapted it to physical. It was a New York Times bestseller. It's a New York Times bestselling comic. This has 2 billion views online. 2 billion
Wow.
views. Okay. 2 billion. And so like she's kind of like the face right now of Western webcomic creators, webtoon creators, because she's a white woman. And so this is what people are talking about. Like this, people are like, Spider-Man and Batman are mainstream. No. This is mainstream. Spider-Man X-Men, Batman, they're not mainstream. They are niche. They're essentially like indie at this point. They're just elderly indie. This is mainstream comics right now. Okay. Mainstream indie. You know, we're thinking, you know, Lady Death and whatnot. Lady Death has to me a capped audience of just people, of Brian Pulido people, and you know, I'd say there's like 3,000 to 4,000 of them. I think, I mean, it's great to have a capped audience of 4,000 people doing $400,000 every time, which is fantastic. Okay, everyone always talks about Brian Pulido. No one ever talks about Mongi. Who is Mongi? It's the girl who created Let's Play, and she is a webtoon creator too. Her book looks like shit printed, by the way. Like, this is fucking ugly. But her book does 200 to 300,000 just as well as Brian Pulido every single year. It's hard to get into the top 10 when Brian Pulido does when the bottom is 300,000 and Brian Pulido's always like, he does like multiple books a year, but she does the same amount of money as Brian Pulido and sometimes more. And so she's a webtoon creator, and this is what the kids are talking about. This is what the kids are reading, and she's putting it through Kickstarter. She puts her physical stuff through Kickstarter. And so I just think, you know, we're talking about Batman, we're talking about, I just think it's an elderly indie thing. It's an elderly indie thing at this point. I think people will always know about Spider-Man. I think people will always know about Batman, but just, I don't know, maybe their time has come. And the way that their stories are going to be produced are going to be a lot different. And we're just going to see a rise in more things like digital to print. I mean, Penguin Random House, they just started right now the big thing to do in the publishing world is to start a webtoon printing company. And so where you go to these webtoons who have only been exclusive digitals and you go, hey, we'll format and print your book. That is the new business model right now in the publishing world, because they're realizing there is so much money to be had. And finally, one company, a webtoon, was like, okay, shit, like, we can do this too. We don't need to outsource this to all these other companies. So now Webtoon has one called Webtoon Unscrolled, and that's where their Webtoon is now putting their books into printed format. And so that's why I say in 5 years, everyone's going to be saying Webtoon is murdering manga, because Webtoons has that free to pay model where you can read the entire comic for free, and then your hardcore fans are going to come and buy it. And when you have a book like Lore Olympus that has 2 billion views just on Webtoon alone, that's going to convert to massive sales, physically. Hopefully that answered your question. That was actually really long-winded. I'm sorry, but that's actually something I'm very passionate about. Is like, I'm not like, everyone's like, oh yeah, Marvel and DC are dying. I don't see them dying. I think like everyone thinks that the comics industry is dying in the West. It's not. The mainstream audience, where like the majority of people are, is just, it's a different audience now. Like, and that audience wants something different.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think you're right for a couple of reasons. I say, you know, the US, the big two, they really started going downhill in the 70s. Because by the 80s they cut out all the other genres except for capes and cowls. You know, even the toy stuff like G.I. Joe and Transformers, those only lasted until about 1990. And that's, to me, that's where they really sort of lost the plot. And then the image guys made it worse. But you know, my mom told me, you know, when she was a kid in the 50s, she used to read romance comics. Those were plenty. There used to be westerns and more horror, not superhero horror, war stories. You know, there was a great a plethora of genres, I guess you could say. So you could jump from one to the other. The only thing that the U.S. industry really lacked was maturity, in the sense that like pretty much everything was aimed at kids, and once you were past 13, there wasn't a whole lot for you. Vertigo, you know, did some good stuff with that, but
like as like Batman readers got older, they wanted more mature Batman stories, and then the companies went, okay, the companies kept growing with their fan base,
right?
but ignored the foundation that kept them going, which was that 15 to 24-year-old base. So yeah, 40-year-old wants a more mature Batman, which is totally fine. You still have to make content for that emerging generation, and they totally missed it, because you're right. When they stopped doing romance comics, you've just now alienated 50% of the population of women who are like, okay, where am I going to go? Where did they go? They went to shoujo manga, which is geared towards women, and then now they're going to webtoons. Most of these webtoons are romance webtoons.
Yep.
They're great. I'm reading several of them, but I can't. You cannot find a single book like Lore Olympus that's published by Boom, DC, Marvel, or Image. No. This is a strictly like for women book. You're not even going to find it. And you could go, oh, look at like Bitch Planet. That's written by a woman. Like, no one wants to read Bitch Planet.
That's what you say you read when you have to match certain political leanings.
Exactly. Hey, do you support Kelly Sue DeConnick? It's like, oh yeah, I love Bitch Planet. Like, bitch. Like, yeah, it's no one's reading Bitch Planet.
So we're getting close to an hour. I did want to mention while we're here.
Yeah.
You currently, whoops, that is not the right page. So you have.
Yeah, that's my website though.
Let's see here. I meant to do. Let's start with this one first, though. Girl with the Mega Fist is still on Kickstarter. Volumes 1 through 4. 3 days left to go.
Yep, this is the conclusion of the first arc of the series. So super excited that we've been able to make it this far. It was one of those things where I'm like, if the sales tank, then I just end it here. But the people have stated with their money, hey, keep this going. We want to see where the series goes, which is exciting. And so I'm very excited to be telling this series. This is like, out of all the other series that I do, this is like my baby, because I'm the one who's writing and drawing this book. And so I'm very passionate about the story, the characters, and where it's going to. And yeah, I love this series so much. I think everyone should check it out. And if you're someone who is like, I'm scared to check out this campaign because there's 4 volumes, we have 2 tiers for new readers. There's a $5 digital new reader tier, and that'll get you volume 1, which is 200 pages. And then we have a $14 tier that'll get you volume 1, which is 200 pages. But if you're a completionist and you want to get all 4 volumes, we have tiers for that. But if you're like, I want to start at volume 1, I don't really want to commit to everything else, we have a volume 1 tier for you. But the digital one's $14 as well. So you can either get the $14 physical volume 1 or the $14 digital one that gets you volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Wait, so the physical is the same as
so that $14 one is volume 1. Mm-hmm. And then it's the same as for the digital volume 1, 2, and 3, and 4, it's $14 as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Threw me off there for a second.
No, you're good.
So, speaking of which, who do you find are your main backers for?
It's a great question. Like I said, it's the Wild West. I don't know who these people are. No, so I'm just gonna guess it's mostly male. Like it's mostly a male audience. And this is a very shonen vibe. It's like when people read this and they message me, they say one person said, Tyler, once again, this is shonen as fuck. Like it's this is a shonen superhero comic, a battle comic disguised as a romance drama. But it's a superhero book. Like the first 4 volumes are her training arc. She's learning her powers. She's trying to get better. And after the end of the 4th volume, she will now become the hero. She will now become the hero of Earth. And in the last page of volume 4, she steps down on Earth. And she's like, okay, like, let's do this. I'm here for 10 years. Like, let's do this. And so volume 5 and onwards is going to be her on Earth, protecting the people of Earth from the various villains and bad guys that we throw her way. So this has really been a training arc for her ascension as like Earth's mightiest hero, essentially.
Nice. So for anyone who is interested, the link is in the description, so you can
Word.
find it there. And then let's talk about your website.
Yeah. So if you want to go on my website, guys, it's drawandtalkcomics.com. This is where you can buy like all like I do various variants on every single book, and I don't always sell them on Kickstarter. So if you want to check those out, you can get other variants of my of like the Girl with the Mega Fist on there. If you're a digital comics person, so if you go to my digital comics tab, actually, if you go to my digital comics tab, I have like you can read my comic The Mask, which is a one-shot 20-page book. It's 100% free, so you can go get yourself a free comic today by doing that. And if you want to spend $1, I've got 2 comics on there that are for $1. And then if you want to back, like let's say you want to back volume 4, but you want to test out the waters first, you can buy all my digital books here right now. And they're all like graphic novels, so like except for the first 3. So like Girl with the Mega Fist, each of those volumes are 200 pages. My Demons Omnibus, that's a 370 page book. Entity is a 120 page book. Chefs is a 72 page book. So yeah, I like the graphic novel format. Super Plumber Sisters and My Sexy Witch Academia, those are 40 page books. That'll eventually be turned into graphic novels. But yeah, this is my website, and I'm very good at fulfilling your orders. I promise.
I hope so, especially with the digital.
Yeah, you know the digital's great. One like the other day, I sold $100 in digital, and I woke up to it, and I was like, "That's great. Well, that was fantastic."
That's awesome.
And what's great is the app worked and got them their books. So I enjoyed that.
And so, in addition, you got.
Oh yeah, this is one of those businesses I was telling you about that I'm working on called the Manga Cafe. So
right.
yeah, and look, there you go. There's my pop up to get you into my email. So what the Manga Cafe is, it's a newsletter to like review various mangas. So if you're into like reading, if you're into reading mangas and you want some suggestions, or you want like some hot topics on manga, or like some various news on the industry, you just join the newsletter, and every week I just send you a hot topic, like, hey, you should read this. This is why. Hey, let's go into this topic, and then here's some news that you might not have known. And so I'm doing that with manga, and I'm also working on a webtoon one as well. That one's not out yet.
And of course, there's always merch.
Yeah, I'm working. That shirt doesn't even work anymore. So like, don't buy it, anyone. I've tried hiding it on my site, but we are working on new merch, which I'm very excited about.
All right, nice. And then there's also links to a YouTube and a Patreon.
Yeah. Trenton says, "Damn, did you write and draw all of those?" I wrote every single one, and I drew. I think at this point I technically have drawn majority of them now. But I work with various writers, and I work with various artists, like Super Plumber Sisters. That's my friend Erwin, that we've worked with together a bunch. With My Sexy Witch Academia, it's my friend Tommy, and he draws that series. He's actually been messaging me all day saying, "Hey, I'm bored. Do you have any like work for the next book?" And I'm like, "I haven't started it yet." And he's like, "I'm bored. Can you figure this out so we can start working on the next one?" So yeah, great guys. I love working with them.
Yeah. So any last words of wisdom, marketing, comics, manga?
Yeah. If I think for marketing with creatives, I think a lot of creatives, they could be serviced so well if they just knew where to start, if they just were pointed in the right direction. And so I'm offering this soon. I'm currently working on what I'm calling like the Comic Creator Bible, and all it is just this massive document for marketing help. And it's probably going to be free, and I'm going to be offering like one-on-one consultations for creatives, just to be like, hey, like if you can just get your mindset in this way, start thinking things like this, and then I can say, hey, you want to start doing these things. I think I think a lot of I've done it already with like 10 to 20 different creators doing these like 1 to 2 hour Zoom calls, and we go through their business, we go through their comic, I'll help them with the ideal customer profile, like research. We'll try to come up with some content ideas, and I'll just try to point them in the right direction. And then after that, it's hands off. And so that's the stuff that I'm looking for. I'm working on. And just if you follow me on Twitter, I try to drop some nuggets every single week. Some of them get me in a lot of heat. The people who hate my those nuggets, they're a bunch of whiner baby comic creators. That's what they are.
Yes.
Because
Yeah, no,
I point a mirror. That's I never say like, oh, it's Freddy Fish creator, he sucks. I just point a mirror. And then they think, they go, oh, it's me he's talking about. It's like, I'm not talking about you specifically, but if you think I'm talking about you, then it probably is you. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's the same thing in moral behavior. If you're pointing out incorrect moral behaviors and someone's like, oh, crap, that's me, all of a sudden you're enemy number one.
Exactly. Exactly. All I'm trying to do is help. I mean, I don't have to. I could just keep all these nuggets myself and I'll do just fine. But I like to think that the new creator who's just starting, who's like just their heads bobbling, I think I can just go, hey, like, I can help you, and that gives me joy. With the comic creator community, there's two communities of comics. There's the creator community, and then there's the reader community. I think you should always focus on the reader community. But at the same time, there's just the creator community can be so toxic because of all the competition, and I think one that's always going to be there. But there also needs to be this sense of like, hey, I can help you out, at least show you the right direction. I think that would really help. I mean, honestly, my biggest hope is that I tell someone these are the things that you should do, and they execute it on it. So they just execute everything that they just destroy, and they just become wildfire, and they become awesome. Like that would make me so happy that someone goes, I listened to Tyler once, and then I surpassed him and everyone else because they at least were pointed in the right direction, and then they did the work to like execute on everything.
Yeah, plus I think too we're in a very different era. A lot of the comic greats of the past, they had these companies that would, they were promoting their work, they were doing the distribution, doing the marketing, whereas now even though Webtoons might be doing great, would I trust Webtoons to do all my work? No, because that means I'm going to end up with like a teeny tiny piece of my own effort. So it's even if you do say you're going to hire somebody to do these things, you still need to know something about it, so they're not just blowing smoke up your rear.
Exactly. Like I've spoken at various author marketing conferences, and I can just see all the authors. I'm telling them all the marketing stuff. I can see them all like looking at each other like, do you have the gun with the bullet? Because I'm trying to kill myself during this guy's talk. Just because like it's just this new era. I mean, the thing that I always hear from creatives is they go, I just want to write. I just want to draw. And my answer is that's not good enough anymore that's not good enough anymore. Because the currency now actually isn't money, it's attention. And the people who can get the most attention are the ones who are getting the money. And you're not getting attention just from writing and drawing. You have to get attention from doing something else.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too that I like to remind people sometimes, if you do want to get picked up by a distribution company, you're a lot more likely to be picked up if you say, hey, I have, 100,000 subs on YouTube or whatever. I sold, 10,000 books or whatever.
Yeah.
If you've got that audience, people will take the bet on you because probably you got the money, and that's the way you retain creative control and you get bigger advances, get bigger percentage of profits.
I'm telling you, when I was working at that publisher, I'd be like the first thing we would look at the manuscripts, and the first thing we'd look at even before we read their thing was like, yo, how many followers they got.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
if it was like if if they had like a ton of followers, that manuscript could be really shit, but we know like we just have to polish it a little and it doesn't even matter because their fans are going to
Yep.
buy it. But if this person had like no followers and it's like, okay, like this thing better be gold or we're just chucking it. 99% of the time, we're like, yeah, that was nice. Chuck it next. But if that person had like 100,000 subscribers and that thing was dog shit, the argument was always, yeah, but they have 100,000 subscribers.
Yep.
Like that was like there was always and you know we'd have people like, what about the artistry of this? I'm like, bitch, I don't care about the artistry of the writing. I'm trying to keep my job. I'm trying to sell books. Which, you know, creative as a creative, that's very idealistic. And to me, I go, you know, have fun with your ideals under a bridge with your jacket in the winter as you're homeless. I don't have ideals. I'm trying to sell books. So yeah.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for stopping by. If you haven't yet, please sub to the channel. Give this video a like. I've got to grow myself. My next appearance will be Friday on the Dungeon Delvers channel, where we will be playing a game of classic Gamma World. I play Rex Dashington, human mech pilot. I will have more guests soon, and the end of the month or early next month, I will have more news on my D&D campaign, Empire of the Undying Sun, and we'll find out more about it soon. So thanks everyone for coming. Tyler, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. I had this was such an enjoyable experience, and your questions were really good. So I really
Thank you.
I really like that.
We'll have to have you back.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Good night, everyone.